stood in the airlock and tried not to think about how far from home he was. Through the clear panel, he could see Earth hanging in the black space like a blue marble. Somewhere down there was his apartment, his dog, his normal life. But that life felt like it belonged to someone else now. "Ready?" asked beside him. She was the mission commander and she looked calm, but noticed her hand was pressed against her chest, right over her heart. She was nervous too. "Ready as I'll ever be," said. The airlock opened. Beyond it was something impossible. The ship was huge, bigger than 10 football stadiums put together. The walls looked like they were made of glass and crystal, and they glowed with soft purple light. Everything was smooth and perfect, like it had been grown instead of built. 3 waited for them. They were tall, much taller than humans, and their bodies were covered in what looked like crystal armor. It wasn't armor they wore. It was their actual skin. The crystals caught the light and threw rainbows across the floor. Their faces were hard to read, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. "Welcome," one of them said. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Realized they weren't speaking out loud. The words appeared directly in his mind. It made his head hurt a little. The science officer was already taking notes on his tablet. "Fascinating," he whispered. "Direct telepathic communication." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Others stopped to stare at them. Could feel their thoughts brushing against his mind like cold fingers. The thoughts felt curious, but also dismissive, like someone looking at an interesting bug. The throne room was massive. The ceiling was so high they couldn't see the top. Hundreds of stood in neat rows on both sides. At the far end, on a throne that looked like it was carved from a single giant crystal, sat Queen Ara. She was beautiful in a way that was almost frightening. Her crystal skin was deeper purple than the others, and her eyes glowed with an inner light. When she looked at the human delegation, felt the weight of centuries in that gaze. "Humans," she said, and her voice in their minds was like music. "You are young. Your species has barely left your world. Why should the Empire speak with children?" Stepped forward. She had practiced this speech for months. "Your Majesty, we may be young, but we learn fast. We have much to offer in trade, in knowledge, in friendship." A small sound interrupted her. It was high-pitched, like a bird chirping. Turned his head and saw something moving through the crowd of. It was a child. At least thought it was a child. It was small, maybe 3 feet tall, and its crystal skin was pale pink instead of purple. It was running, and the adult were trying to catch it, but it was too fast. "Prince," one of the called out, "come back." The child didn't listen. It ran straight down the center of the throne room, right past, and then it stopped in front of. Looked down at the little alien prince. The child looked up at him with eyes that glowed soft gold. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the prince reached up and grabbed his hand. The throne room went completely silent. Every stopped moving. Could feel shock radiating from them like a wave. The child's hand was warm. Had expected it to feel like stone or glass, but it didn't. It felt alive. The prince smiled at him, and even though the face was alien, the smile was unmistakable. It was the smile of a happy child. Queen Ara stood up from her throne. She moved down the steps slowly, her eyes fixed on her son and on. When she reached them, she looked at for a long time. He felt her mind touching his, reading him, searching for something. "This is impossible," she said quietly. "In 10,000 years, a royal child has never chosen an alien. Never." "Your Majesty," one of the advisors said urgently, "this must be a mistake. The child is young. He doesn't understand." "Silence." The queen's voice was sharp. She knelt down next to her son. "Do you know what you have done?" The child nodded. He didn't let go of his hand. The queen stood back up. When she spoke, her voice filled the entire throne room. "By the law of our ancestors, by the oldest tradition of our people, when a royal child chooses their guardian, that choice is sacred. It cannot be undone. It cannot be refused." She looked at and he saw something in her eyes. Fear, curiosity, he couldn't tell. "My son has chosen," Queen Ara declared. "This human shall become his guardian until his ascension. He will live among us. He will protect the prince. He will raise him. By our law, by our blood, this is binding." The throne room erupted. Were speaking all at once, their telepathic voices crashing into his mind like waves. He winced and grabbed his head with his free hand. The prince squeezed his other hand. Pushed through the crowd to reach him. "What just happened?" "I don't know," said honestly. His heart was pounding. "I think I just got adopted by an alien prince." Was typing frantically on his tablet. "This is unprecedented. There's no record of any species being chosen as a guardian. Do you understand what this means?" Looked down at the small alien child holding his hand. The prince looked back at him with complete trust, like he knew would protect him, like he knew was exactly who he needed. "No," said, "I don't understand any of this." But even as he said it, something in his chest felt warm. He had been a soldier once. He had protected people. That was what he was good at. Maybe this small alien prince somehow knew that. Maybe that was why he had chosen him. Queen Ara raised her hand and the throne room fell silent again. "Take them to the guest quarters," she commanded. "The human delegation may stay for the evening. Tomorrow, we'll travel to Our to begin his training. The Guardian trials have not been passed by an alien in our history because no alien has ever attempted them." She looked directly at, "You have 7 days to complete the trials. If you fail, my son's choice will be and you will return to your people. If you succeed," she paused, "if you succeed, you will change everything." Guards led the human delegation away. As they walked, looked back over his shoulder. The little prince was still watching him, and he waved one small crystal hand. Waved back. He had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. But somewhere deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same again. The doors closed behind them, and Earth suddenly felt very far away. There was like nothing had ever seen. As the transport ship descended through purple clouds, he pressed his face against the window. The planet's surface was covered in massive crystal structures that rose up like mountains. Cities hung between them on bridges that seemed too thin to hold anything, and everywhere there was light. The crystals caught the sun and scattered it into a million colors. "It's beautiful," said beside him. She was a who had been assigned to help him understand culture. She had arrived on the 2 months ago as part of the advanced science team. "But don't let the beauty fool you. They are warriors. They've conquered 17 star systems." Nodded, he knew that. He had read all the briefing files during the trip, but knowing something and seeing it were different things. The ship landed in front of the royal palace. It was the biggest building had ever seen, made entirely of deep purple crystal that seemed to pulse with inner light. As he stepped off the ship, gravity hit him. It was stronger here than on Earth. Each step felt like he was carrying extra weight. General was waiting for him. The general was massive, even for his species, and his crystal armor had scars on it. Real scars, carved deep into the crystal. This was someone who had fought in many battles. "Human," said, and his telepathic voice felt like gravel scraping against his mind. "You are here for the Guardian trials. I will tell you now, you will fail. These trials were designed for warriors. You are soft, weak, small." "I'll do my best," said simply. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your best will not be enough, but our law requires that you try. Come." The first trial was physical. They took to an arena where soldiers trained. The gravity was even stronger here, adjusted to help them build strength. Had to cross the arena while carrying a weight that was almost as heavy as he was. Around him, young trainees did the same exercise easily, their crystal bodies built for this kind of work. Took 3 steps and fell. The weight crushed down on him, driving him to his knees. His muscles screamed. He heard the trainees laughing, their amusement jabbing at his mind. "Get up," commanded. Got up, he took another step, then another. His legs shook, sweat poured down his face, but he kept moving. When he fell again, he got back up. When his muscles gave out, he dragged himself forward on his hands and knees. It took him 4 hours to cross a space that crossed in 10 minutes, but he crossed it. Stood over him as he collapsed at the finish line. "You should have quit," the general said. "Humans don't quit," gasped, "not when someone is counting on us." The second trial tested mental strength. They put in a room and filled his mind with telepathic noise. It was like 1,000 voices screaming at once, all of them telling him he was weak, worthless, that he should give up. They could filter this noise naturally, had no such defense. He lasted 30 minutes before he started screaming, an hour before he started crying, 2 hours before he began to hallucinate, but he didn't press the button that would end the trial. He thought about the little prince, about trusting eyes, and he held on. When they finally pulled him out, was waiting with medical equipment. "You're insane," she said while treating his bleeding nose. "Trainees usually last 3 hours maximum. You lasted 5. "Did I pass?" asked. "Barely," she said, "but yes." Between trials spent time with, the prince seemed to light up whenever entered the room. They couldn't communicate with words very well yet. The prince's telepathy was still developing, and his mind wasn't built to receive it, but they found other ways. Taught him hand games from Earth, pat a cake, rock, paper, scissors. The prince loved them, laughing with a sound like wind chimes, and told him stories about Earth, about heroes who faced impossible odds and won through courage and cleverness. "Why do your heroes always win?" asked one day. His telepathic voice was softer than the adults, easier on his mind. "Because they don't give up," said. "Even when things look hopeless, they find a way." The prince thought about this. "Win because we are strong." "Humans win because we are stubborn," said, and he smiled. "Sometimes stubborn beats strong." The third trial was tactical. They put in a simulation against battle scenarios. He had to command troops, make strategic decisions, outthink opponents who had centuries of combat experience. By all logic, he should have been crushed, but had been in special forces. He knew how to think like a soldier, and more importantly, he knew how to fight dirty. The fought with honor, following ancient battle traditions, ignored all of that. He used guerrilla tactics, ambushes, traps. He broke every rule of proper warfare. The observers were shocked. Some were disgusted. But when the simulation ended, had won 3 out of 5 scenarios. "This is not how warriors fight," said coldly. "It's how survivors fight," replied. The final trial came on the 7th day. They took to the wilderness beyond the city. In a massive cage was a predator from the deep forests. It looked like a bear mixed with a wolf, covered in crystal spikes, with too many teeth in its mouth. "A guardian must be able to protect the prince from any threat," explained. "You will enter the cage. You will defeat or it will defeat you." They gave a weapon. It was a long blade made of crystal, balanced for hands. It felt wrong in its grip. He entered the cage. The circled him, its eyes glowing red. It was massive, probably weighing 600 pounds. Its claws scraped against the ground, leaving deep grooves. Knew he couldn't beat this thing in a straight fight, so he didn't try. Instead, he watched it. He studied the way it moved, the way it tilted its head, the way it growled, and he realized something. The creature was scared. It was trapped in a cage with a strange creature, and it didn't want to fight. It wanted to escape. Lowered his weapon. He sat down on the ground. The stopped circling, confused, closed his eyes and took slow, deep breaths, making himself calm, making himself small and non-threatening. Minutes passed. The crowd of watching was silent. Then felt hot breath on his face. He opened his eyes. There was right in front of him, its teeth inches from his throat, but it wasn't attacking. It was sniffing him, curious. Slowly, very slowly, reached out his hand. The flinched back, waited. Then he reached out again. This time the creature let him touch its head. Stood up, the backed away, but not far. He walked to the cage door. The creature followed him, opened the door and ran out into the forest free. Stared at him. You were supposed to fight it. I don't kill things just because someone tells me to, said. The trial was to prove I could protect the prince. I did. I survived. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is not to fight at all. Queen Ara had been watching from the royal platform. Now she descended to the arena floor. She looked at for a long time. No one has ever completed the trials this way, she said finally. You did not win through strength. You did not win through telepathic power. You won through something else, something we do not have a word for. Humanity, called out from the crowd. He won through humanity. The queen nodded slowly. Then humanity is more valuable than we knew. Of Earth, you have passed the guardian trials. You are bound to my son. May you serve him well. That night in his new quarters in the palace, lay awake. Through his window he could see Earth's sun, just another star in an alien sky. He thought about everything he had left behind, everything he had gained. His door chimed. He opened it. Little stood there holding a blanket. Bad dreams, the prince said quietly. Smiled, come on in. The alien prince climbed onto his bed and told him stories until he fell asleep. And somehow, despite being millions of miles from home, felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. 3 months had passed since became the guardian. He had learned to navigate the palace, to eat food without getting sick, and to block out most of the telepathic noise that constantly buzzed in the background. He had even started to understand moods and needs. The prince was becoming more than his charge. He was becoming his friend. But not everyone in the palace was happy about this. First noticed the whispers during a royal dinner. He sat at the high table next to which was his right as guardian, but he felt the stares, the cold thoughts that brushed against his mind. Some looked at him like he was an interesting pet. Others looked at him like he was a disease. They hate me here, said quietly to later that night. She had stayed on the planet to continue her research and had become one of his few friends. Not all of them, said. But yes, some do, the purists especially. They think allowing aliens near the throne weakens purity. The purists pulled up information on her tablet. A political faction. They're led by Lord or one of the Queen's distant cousins. They believe that should remain separate from younger species. That contact with aliens will corrupt their culture. Frowned. That's just racism with fancy words. Yes, agreed. But it's popular racism. About 30% of the population supports them. 2 weeks later, the first attack came. Was walking through the palace gardens. It was one of their daily routines. The prince loved the crystal flowers that grew there, plants that chimed softly when the wind touched them. They were laughing about something, a joke had learned from when the air suddenly felt wrong. His old military instincts kicked in. He grabbed and dove behind a large crystal formation just as something exploded where they had been standing. The blast was small, precise. It carved a hole in the ground but didn't damage the surrounding area. This wasn't meant to cause chaos. It was meant to kill one specific target. The palace guards arrived within seconds, their crystal weapons drawn, but the attacker was already gone. Queen Ara came to his quarters that night. Her face was hard to read, but he could sense worry radiating from her. This was not an accident, she said. Someone tried to kill my son. The purists asked. We have no proof, but yes, I suspect them. She looked at who was sleeping peacefully in the next room. I want you to find who did this. You have skills we do not. You think in ways we do not. Find them. So started investigating. He wasn't a detective, but he had been a soldier. He knew how to track enemies, how to find patterns, how to see what others missed. Arrived from Earth a week later as part of an expanded diplomatic mission. He brought news from home and a care package with real coffee. But more importantly, he brought his analytical mind. Look at this, said, spreading out data on his table. There have been 14 small accidents in the palace over the past 6 months. A falling crystal, a malfunctioning door, a spoiled food shipment meant for the queen. None of them were serious. None of them were investigated. But together they form a pattern, said Understanding. Someone has been testing the palace security, learning the weaknesses. Exactly. And 3 days ago, communication crystals were stolen from the palace armory. Those crystals can be modified to make small explosives. They were getting closer, but they needed help from inside the palace. That help came from an unexpected source. Her name was Na, and she was a palace guard who had been present during the attack. She came to quarters late one night, moving quietly through the shadows. "I know who leads the conspiracy," she said without introduction, "but I need your help to prove it." "Why should I trust you?" asked. Na's crystal skin shifted color slightly. What had learned was a sign of strong emotion because I was supposed to be one of them. Lord or recruited me 6 months ago. He said we were going to preserve purity, make the empire strong again. I believed him. She looked away. But attempting to murder a child, that is not strength, that is cowardice. Together they started to uncover the scope of the plot. The purists weren't just planning to kill. They were planning a full coup. They would strike during the Festival of Ascension, a sacred ceremony that would happen in 2 weeks. All the royal family would be gathered in one place. All the guards would be focused on ritual. It would be the perfect moment. Brought the information to Queen Ara. She listened with growing horror. "How many are involved?" she asked. "At least 50 conspirators that we know of," said. "Maybe more. Some of them are palace guards, some are nobles. They've been planning this for months." The queen was silent for a long time. "We cannot cancel the festival. It would show weakness. It would cause panic. But we also cannot allow this attack to succeed." "Then we prepare," said. "We know their plan now. We can counter it." During the preparation, spent more time with, the prince knew something was wrong. Children always know. "Are you going away?" asked one day. "No," said firmly. "I'm staying right here with you." "Some say you don't belong here, that you should go back to Earth." Knelt down so he was eye level with the small prince. "Do you want me to go?" "No," grabbed his hand. "You're my guardian, you're my friend, I chose you." "Then that's all that matters," said. "What other people think doesn't change what's true. You chose me and I chose to stay. That's our bond. Nobody can break it." Thought about this. On Earth, do children choose their guardians? "Sometimes," said. "We call them parents or guardians or teachers. And the best ones are the ones we choose in our hearts, not just the ones we're born to." "I chose you in my heart," said. Felt something tight in his chest. "I know, buddy, I know." As the festival approached, met with a human cultural who had recently arrived. She was smart and observant with a background in psychology. "You're isolated," said bluntly after meeting him for the first time. "You're the only human living full-time in the royal court. That's not healthy." "I'm fine," said. "No, you're not. You're carrying an impossible weight. You're protecting an alien child from assassins, bridging 2 completely different cultures and dealing with prejudice every single day." She put a hand on his arm. "It's okay to admit this is hard." Looked away. "If I admit it's hard, I might not be able to keep doing it." "Or," said gently, "if you admit it's hard, you can ask for help. You're not alone, there are other humans here now. There's me. There's even Na and some who respect what you're trying to do. Let us help you." That night finally let himself cry, just for a little while, just enough to release some of the pressure, and then he got back to work. The night before the festival or made his move, but he didn't attack the palace, he attacked directly. 3 purist warriors cornered him in an empty corridor. They were all bigger than him, stronger than him, with crystal weapons that could cut through steel. "Leave," the lead warrior said. "Leave now and return to your primitive planet. The prince will forget you. Everything will return to normal." "No," said simply. Then you will die here, human, and when you are dead, the prince will die too, and this empire will be pure again." They attacked, fought like his life depended on it because it did. He was faster than they expected, moving in ways their telepathic battle coordination didn't predict. Humans don't think in straight lines. Humans improvise. He used the environment, broke a crystal pillar to create sharp fragments, used his smaller size to dodge under their attacks, fought dirty, hitting joints and weak points that considered dishonorable to target. But there were 3 of them and 1 of him. He was losing. Then Na arrived with loyal guards. The purest warriors were captured, but not before one of them sent a telepathic warning to the others. The coup was happening now. Tonight, not during the festival, right now. Alarms began to sound throughout the palace. The shadows were full of enemies. The purists had made their move, and everything was falling apart. Ran towards Chambers, his heart pounding. He had to reach the prince. He had to protect him. That was all that mattered. The palace was burning. Well, not burning exactly. Crystal didn't burn the way normal materials did, but the purists had weapons that shattered the crystal walls, sending rainbow shards flying like shrapnel. Could hear the sounds of fighting echoing through the corridors. Telepathic screams filled the air like static. He reached Chambers and found the door already broken open. His heart stopped, but inside the prince was safe. 2 royal guards stood in front of him, their weapons raised. The small prince looked terrified but unhurt. Ran to him, wrapping small crystal arms around his waist. "I've got you," said, picking him up. "We need to move now." One of the guards spoke urgently. "The queen is defending the throne room. The purists have taken the east wing. We're cut off from the main exit." "Then we go through the servant passages," said. He had spent 3 months learning every corner of this palace. He knew routes the purists wouldn't expect. They moved quickly through narrow corridors that most never used. The passages were tight, built for smaller maintenance workers. It gave an advantage. He was smaller than the warriors, and he could move faster here. Behind them they heard sounds of pursuit. The purists were following. They burst out into a garden courtyard. Moonlight reflected off the crystal flowers, making everything glow. For a moment it was beautiful, then saw them. 5 purist warriors blocked the exit, and leading them was Lord or himself. Or was ancient, maybe 500 years old. His crystal skin was deep red with age, carved with scars from countless battles. He looked at with contempt. "The human pet," or said, "playing at being a guardian. This is what we have come to, letting primitive aliens raise our royalty." "Let us pass," said. He sat down but kept himself between the prince and the attackers. The 2 royal guards moved to flank him. "No," or said, "the old empire dies tonight. The weak queen who allowed alien contamination dies. Her corrupted son dies, and a new, pure empire rises." "You're talking about killing a child," said. "Where's the honor in that?" "Honor?" or laughed. "Humans speak of honor. You who fight without telepathy, who think in chaos, who break every rule of civilized warfare. You have no honor." "Maybe not by your definition," said, "but I'm not going to let you hurt this kid." The attack came fast. The purest warriors charged. The royal guards met them, crystal weapons clashing with sounds like breaking glass. Pulled out the small blade he always carried. It was nothing compared to weapons, but it was sharp and he knew how to use it. One warrior broke through the guards and came straight for, intercepted him, diving low and cutting at the joints in this crystal armor. The warrior fell, screaming, but 2 more took his place. Fought like he had never fought before. Every move was desperate, every second counted. He couldn't overpower them, so he outmaneuvered them, dodged, weaved, struck at weak points, used their own momentum against them. But Or was too skilled, too experienced, too strong. He knocked aside one of the royal guards and advanced on with terrifying speed. His crystal blade caught across the chest, drawing blood, fell backward, gasping. or stood over him. You fought well for a human, but this is where your story ends. He raised his blade for the killing blow. Then light exploded across the courtyard. Was glowing. The small prince's entire body blazed with golden light so bright it was hard to look at directly. Could feel something radiating from the child. Not telepathy exactly. Something deeper, something more fundamental. Or stumbled backward, confused. This is impossible. The prince is too young for his powers to manifest. You tried to hurt him, screamed, and his child's voice carried a weight that shook the ground. You tried to hurt, he's my guardian, he's my friend. The golden light formed a shield around and the prince. When the purest warriors tried to advance, they bounced off it like hitting a solid wall, or threw his weapon at them with all his strength. The blade shattered against the shield. At that moment, reinforcements arrived. Led a squad of human embassy guards, armed with earth weapons, was with them, carrying a medical kit, and behind them came Queen Ara with 50 loyal warriors. The battle turned quickly. The purists were surrounded, most surrendered. A few tried to fight and were cut down, or tried to flee but was caught by Na, who tackled him to the ground. The queen approached the glowing shield around her son. She said softly, "You can lower your shield now, the danger has passed." The golden light faded, collapsed exhausted, caught him before he hit the ground. "I did it," the prince whispered. "I protected you like you protect me." His eyes were wet. "Yeah, buddy, you did amazing." Rushed over with medical supplies. "Let me see that wound." "I'm fine," tried to say, but the world was spinning. He realized he had lost a lot of blood. The crystal blade had cut deeper than he thought. The next few hours were a blur. Medical treatment, questions, debriefings. Answered everything on autopilot while the palace staff worked to restore order. The casualty reports came in slowly. 15 royal guards dead, 23 injured, 7 civilians caught in the crossfire, and Na, who had taken a blade meant for Queen Ara, had died before they could save her. Sat in a medical room, bandaged and exhausted, sat with him. She was brave, said quietly, thinking about Na. She switched sides because it was right, even though it meant going against her own people. That's the hardest kind of bravery, said. Not fighting enemies, but fighting the wrong things your own side believes. Came in later with food. Real earth food somehow. She must have pulled strings. "How's the prince?" asked. "Sleeping. The power manifestation exhausted him, but the queen's doctors say he'll be fine." Sat down. What he did was unprecedented. Children don't develop defensive powers until they're much older. The doctors think your bond with him triggered something. Your emotions, your determination to protect him, somehow resonated with his developing abilities. "So he got superpowers because we're friends," said. "It would have been funny if everything didn't hurt so much." "More or less," said. "They are going to spend decades studying this. But the simple version, love is powerful, even across species." The queen came to see him the next day. She looked tired in a way that crystal beings shouldn't be able to look tired. 37 conspirators have been arrested, she said, or and his inner circle will face trial. The purist movement has been broken, at least for now. She looked at. "You saved my son's life. Again." "Just doing my job," said. "No," the queen said firmly. "You went far beyond your duty. You bled for him. You nearly died for him. And in doing so, you showed my people something they needed to see. That worth is not measured by strength or telepathy or crystal skin. That a human can be braver than ancient warriors. That love and loyalty matter more than purity." She reached out and touched his hand. It was the first time she had ever made physical contact with him. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for protecting my son. Thank you for teaching him. Thank you for showing us what humanity truly means." That night came to his medical room. He climbed carefully onto the bed, avoiding the bandages. "I was scared," the prince admitted. "When they hurt you, I was so scared." Fear means you care, said. That's okay. What matters is you didn't let fear stop you from doing what was right. Will you stay? Asked. Even though it's dangerous, even though some still don't like you. Looked at the small alien child who had chosen him all those months ago, who had trusted him completely, who had saved his life with love made into light. Yeah, said, I'll stay, for as long as you need me. Curled up against him and fell asleep. Through the window, could see the crystal city glowing in the darkness, beautiful and strange, and somehow becoming like home. 6 months had passed since the coup attempt. The palace had been rebuilt. The traitors had been tried and sentenced, and slowly, carefully, the empire was changing. Stood in the throne room watching a ceremony he never thought he would see. Queen Ara was addressing the High Council, and for the first time in 10,000 years, there were none in that council. 3 humans sat among the crystal nobles. One was a trade representative. One was a cultural ambassador. And one was, who had been appointed as Earth's official liaison to the throne. The galaxy is changing, Queen Ara said, her telepathic voice carrying to every corner of the massive room. We can change with it, or we can be left behind. The purists believed that isolation would make us strong. They were wrong. My son's guardian showed us that our strength comes not from purity, but from what we can learn from others. She looked directly at. Because of one human's courage, my son lives. Because of his example, we see that younger species have wisdom we have overlooked. Today, I announce the opening decree. The empire will no longer stand apart. We will open our borders. We will share knowledge. We will build alliances with those who wish to join us as equals, not subjects. The room erupted in discussion. Some crystal faces showed approval, others showed concern. But no one could deny what had happened. A human had passed the guardian trials. A human had saved the royal heir. A human had changed everything. After the ceremony, found himself surrounded by well-wishers and curious who wanted to meet him. It was overwhelming. He slipped away to the gardens, needing quiet. He found there, practicing with his new abilities. The prince was learning to control the defensive shield he had manifested during the attack. Golden light flickered around him, unstable but growing stronger. You're getting better, said. Grinned, the expression looked more natural on him now, had taught him how to smile like a human, and the prince did it often. Watch this. He concentrated, and the shield expanded into a bubble that surrounded both of them. It held steady for almost a minute before flickering out. That was great, said. The teachers say I'm learning fast. They say it's because of our bond. Sat down on a crystal bench. Do you miss Earth? It was a question the prince had never asked before. Thought about it carefully. Yes, he said honestly. I miss coffee. I miss my old apartment. I miss knowing what everything is and how everything works. But you know what? I don't regret being here. Why? Because I found something here I didn't know I was looking for. A purpose, a family. He put his hand on the prince's shoulder. You. Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I want to visit Earth someday. I want to see where you came from. I want to understand humans better. We'll make it happen, promised. When you're older, when you're ready. Found them there an hour later. He was carrying data pads and looked excited. You need to see this, he said. The science division just published their report on the cultural exchange program. It's incredible. In just 6 months, we've made more progress in understanding biology and technology than we made in the previous 2 years, and they are equally fascinated by human psychology and social structures. That's good, said. It's more than good. It's revolutionary. Pulled up charts and graphs. Other alien species are watching. 3 other civilizations have reached out asking to join similar programs. The Queen is considering it. You started something that's spreading across the galaxy. Felt uncomfortable with the praise. I didn't do anything special. I just tried to protect a kid who needed protecting. That's exactly what made it special, said. You didn't do it for politics or glory. You did it because it was right. That's what changed people's minds. Later that evening, met with in the human quarters. She had been working on establishing a formal exchange program where young humans could study on worlds and young could study on Earth. "We have 73 applications from humans who want to come here," said, "and Queen Ara has authorized sending 20 young to Earth for cultural immersion. This is really happening. Real integration, real friendship between species." "Do you think it'll last?" asked. "Or will it all fall apart as soon as people forget about the coup?" "I think it depends on people like you," said. "People who show every day that working together is better than standing apart. The purists aren't gone. There are still who think humans are too primitive to be equals, and there are humans who fear alien influence. But as long as there are people willing to build bridges, those bridges will hold." A message came through on his communicator. It was from. She wanted to show him something in the science labs. When he arrived, he found her standing next to a large crystal display. It showed a map of the known galaxy. "Look at this," said. "These are all the species they have had contact with over their history." She pointed to hundreds of colored dots. "And these are the ones they formed alliances with. Only a dozen dots changed color. They conquered or dominated almost everyone they met. They never built partnerships because they never thought anyone else was worth partnering with." She changed the display. Now it showed current diplomatic connections. Lines connected them to dozens of other species. But in the last 6 months, everything has changed. The Queen's opening decree worked because you proved aliens could be valuable. Now look. The lines as she fast-forwarded projections. "Within 10 years, if this trend continues, the Empire will be at the center of the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history." Stared at the display. All those connections, all those species working together, and it had started with a child running toward him in a throne room. "I'm just one person," he said quietly. "Yes," agreed. "One person who refused to give up. One person who showed kindness to an alien child. One person who proved that humans belong in the stars. Never underestimate what one person can do." That night was summoned to the Queen's private chambers. It was rare for her to meet with anyone so informally. When he arrived, he found her looking out a massive window at the crystal city below. "I have been thinking," she said without turning around, "about the future, about my son, about what kind of empire he will inherit." "He'll be a good leader," said. "He's smart, compassionate, brave." "Because of you," the Queen interrupted. She finally turned to face him. "Without you, he would have been raised by protocol and tradition. He would have learned to rule but not to care, not to see value in those different from himself. You gave him something our species had forgotten. You gave him empathy." She walked to her desk and picked up a small crystal object. It glowed with inner light. "This is the Guardian's bond," she explained. "Every Guardian receives one when their ward comes of age. It symbolizes the connection between protector and protected. It cannot be broken, even by death." She held it out too. "I am giving this to you now, even though my son is still young, because you have already earned it 1,000 times over." Took the crystal. It was warm in his hand, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "I also have a proposal," the Queen continued. "I want you to create a new position, Guardian of the Alliance. You would work with and the other ambassadors to help integrate new species into our growing coalition. You would use your experience, your perspective, to help others understand each other. Would you accept?" Thought about it, it would mean even more time away from Earth, even more responsibility, even more challenges. But it would also mean more species learning to work together. More children like growing up in a galaxy where differences were celebrated instead of feared. "I accept," he said, "on one condition." The Queen raised what might have been an eyebrow. "You negotiate with your Queen." "I want to bring more humans here, young ones. I want them to grow up alongside children. Let them learn from each other, play together, become friends. If we want real change, it has to start with the next generation." The queen considered this. Then she smiled, an expression she had learned from watching and her son. Agreed. We will establish a joint academy, human and children learning side by side. It will be the first of its kind. She extended her crystal hand, shook it. The gesture was purely human, but she had learned it meant respect and agreement. A week later stood in the new academy building. It wasn't finished yet, but the basic structure was there. Through the open walls he could see children arriving. Human children from Earth, nervous and excited. Children curious about their new classmates. Stood next to him, watching with wonder. They're all different, the prince observed. Different colors, different shapes, different ways of thinking. Yeah, said, and that's what makes them amazing. Imagine what they'll teach each other. Imagine what they'll build together. A small human girl approached them shyly. She was maybe 6 years old, with dark hair and wide eyes. Are you guardian? She asked. Just, he said, kneeling down. What's your name? I'm from Seoul, she looked at with fascination. Is he really a prince? He is, said, but right now he's also just a kid who needs friends. Think you can be his friend? Thought about it seriously. Then she nodded. She held out her hand too. The prince looked at it confused, had taught him about handshakes, but he had never done it with another child. You're supposed to shake it, explained patiently. It means we're friends. Took her hand carefully, his crystal fingers wrapped around her small human hand, and he smiled. Other children began to gather, humans and awkward and uncertain but curious. They started introducing themselves. Some words were telepathic, some were spoken, and some were just gestures, but somehow they understood each other. Watched them and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Joined him, watching the children with a smile. You did it, she said. You really did it. First contact was supposed to be careful and formal, all protocols and treaties, but you made it about something simpler, about people caring for people. It was never supposed to be complicated, said. We're all just trying to survive in this universe. Might as well do it together. As the sun set over the crystal city, thought about the journey that had brought him here. An alien child running toward him. A queen's declaration. Trials that seemed impossible. Battles and fear and loss. And through it all, the simple decision to protect someone who needed protecting. Ran over, pulling, and 2 other children with him. The prince called out excitedly, knows a game from Earth. Can you teach us all how to play? Laughed, sure buddy, it's called tag, and the rules are simple. Someone is it, and they have to catch the others. As he explained the game, he saw more children gathering. Humans and listening with equal interest. Learning to play together. Learning that the differences between them didn't matter as much as the fun they could share. Somewhere in the city, diplomats were negotiating treaties. Scientists were exchanging knowledge. Politicians were debating the future of the galaxy. But here, in this moment, a group of children from 2 different worlds were just playing tag and laughing under an alien sky. And knew that this, right here, was what would change everything. Not grand gestures or political alliances, just people caring about people. Just children learning that someone who looks different can still be a friend. The stars above shone bright, and they shone on a future full of possibilities. A future where an alien child could run toward a human and choose them as family. A future where that choice would echo across the galaxy. A future that started with one small act of trust and grew into something beautiful.